It's another day. It's another bright sunny day, hopefully in your part of the world. In my part of the world, it's raining because I'm in England and it constantly rains in this darn part of the world. But ayo, what can we do? We can live on and talk about cameras. So today's video, folks, is all about slow-mo. So if you guys are sports photographers, you're landscape photographers, you're wildlife photographers, all that kind of jazz, you definitely want to play around with slow-mo. So what I'm going to be showing you today is the good settings that I may use, and it's all try and error, so you might find something better. Good settings for slow-mo. So I'm going to show you on this 7D. I personally don't think the 7D has got very good slow-mo settings, but the fundamentals, the theory behind slow-mos is essentially the same for any cameras. All you want is essentially a high frame rate. So when you go to that online shop nowadays, is when you look at that nice fancy mirrorless camera that you probably want to get, is look at the frame rate per second. So the higher the frame rate, the more quality in terms of slow-mo you're going to get. So for example, this 7D only goes to 50 frames on HD. Now that's quite old school. On this camera that I'm filming with, which is a 5D Mark III, it goes up to 60 frames per second. Again, personally, I think it's old school. So you definitely, when you go to purchase your Vavavoom camera, is look for high frame rate, because that will allow you to get very good quality slow-mo. You also need to have a good ISO range, because obviously if you're shooting low light, you need to make sure that you've got good ISO in order to not get too much graininess in your shots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to menu, okay? Go to menu, I'm going to scooch across right to the beginning. So scooch, 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 scooch. Go to the beginning, and there's a few things that you need to ensure that you have for slow-mo. The first thing is you shoot in the highest possible quality render that you can get, and that's raw, okay? Now I don't tend to shoot in raw, but in slow-mo you want to shoot in raw. Why? It's because you want good quality frames within that per second. So every single frame that you shoot within your slow-mo is going to be crisp. So when you slow it down, essentially it's going to be crisp, like a packet of crisps, if that makes sense. Okay, now you can shout out in my video and say, what is this guy going on about, and slag me off if you want, but shoot in raw, folks. Okay, next thing, red eye on. Why? Because you don't want slow-mo with red eye on, because that's more work for you in post. So have red eye on. Beep, forget beep. Release, shutter release, all these things don't worry about. Flash control, don't worry about that, because you're not going to have flash on because you're filming. Next thing you want to go to is white balance. So go to your white balance and have that on auto. You can play around with this if you want, but I would just put it in auto. Okay, the rest, forget it. Okay, you don't need the rest. Next, scooch across again, go to live view mode, enable that. So when you're filming, the camera can view what's in screen and have your grid on, because why? You're filming, so you want to definitely frame up your scenes. Exposure simulation, have that on, because it just allows you to play around with the exposure a little bit more. Okay, so those are the things that you need to have. The main thing essentially is your frame rate. So if I go back to menu and go to the film mode again, so there's my grid live view mode. So I was in photo mode, so I put it in film mode. Is your frame rate. So make sure that one there is on the highest one possible you've got available. So on this camera, it's full HD 50 frames, not very good to tell you the truth. So you want to definitely have that as high as possible. The next thing you want to make sure you do is have a high shutter speed. The reason why is because you're going to be shooting raw high res raw file footage at full HD 4K, and you want to reduce it down to slow-mo, so you want high shutter speed. Your f-stop you can sort of leave around about 3 to 5 or 6, and your ISO I would suggest you leave on auto as well. You may want to add some exposure compensation as well. That's entirely up to you. You know, I'm not going to sort of kind of dwell on that. If you're shooting in If you're shooting portrait, have it on spot. If you're shooting if you're filming, for example, slow-mo, and there's a big scene with lots of things going on, maybe it's wildlife, have evaluative metering. Once you've got those settings, you're ready to go. You might want to also consider about focus points. Okay, so change your focal points to maybe spot if it's a portrait and you're going to track a person and you're going to turn them into slow-mo. But if it's, you might want an expandable one if you're shooting a frame with lots of things within the frame. Put it back into film mode. Okay, and then just click on your AF selection mode. So click on that, make sure your scene is in focus. So click on that AF selection, the camera will focus into your object, and then you are ready to shoot your lovely slow-mo shots of your bird or your fish or your pasta in my case, or your gran, or whoever you want to shoot. So yeah, those are the settings. You can do this on your phone as well. So if you've got a decent phone, some phones now allow you to shoot in, in settings where it's in slow-mo. The only disadvantage to do it on your phone, it's lovely on your nice little smartphone, but when you're downloading, you want to put it into a feature film or a proper film in post, you might notice there's probably a graininess and it sort of loses quality as the file stretches out. So that's why I'm saying you want to shoot in RAW on your DSLR or on your mirrorless, because if you're going to put it on a big screen in your big fancy cinema, then you're going to want quality for your viewer. So yeah, those are some settings for you guys for slow-mo. The next video, I've just shot some shots of pasta and Orbeez. I don't know if you guys like those. Orbeez are the thing at the moment, aren't they? So I've shot a few close-up scenes with a 104mm L lens with those settings that I've just talked to you about on a Canon 5D with a 60 frame, and I've also taken it to post and also stretched it out a little bit to get a little bit more slow-mo. They're okay. Check them out, see what you think. Do me a shout out and give me a little TikTok, whatever you want to do. Okay. Also, please do post anything that you want me to make. I feel like I've got a little audience now, so please do post and I will happily make videos, not me, but videos, cameras, of whatever you like. Thanks for watching.